France.
Oh,
Home of
Francais.
croissants, Eiffel Tower, Raquel, unless she's
Yeah.
moved away somewhere. And we just come back from a lovely holiday there. So we thought,
We
for
haven't
a
mentioned
change,
where we went, did we?
we went to Marseille in the south of France, which is lovely.
Lovely.
I don't think they've ever been there on Coronation Street, but this is
It
enough
doesn't
for us
have a
to...
good reputation, but it's turning around.
Yeah. So we decided we'd look back because over the years on Coronation Street, there have been a number of storylines that have either referenced France or taken place in France. So we thought we'd bundle it all together in a nice, neat package, and hopefully it'll be interesting for you to find out about how England's love-hate relationship with our closest neighbour, apart from Ireland, has been replicated on the show. So, this has involved a bit of research on Corripedia from me, like searching in France and French and Paris and things. I'm sure there's probably a few that have been missed out here, but these are going to be some of the main ways that La France has been mentioned in La Coronation Street. So,
a few facts first about the character of France. Full name is France, and obviously the capital is Paris.
of course.
And its government is a unitary semi-presidential constitutional republic.
Don't ask us what that means.
And the president is François Hollande.
François Hollande.
Who no one really knows about.
I don't know very much about him.
Everyone preferred Sarkozy because he had a funny name, and he was easy to draw caricatures of.
Yeah. Oh, no, François Hollande, he's got a little dumpy face with little glasses and stuff.
I wouldn't be able to tell you what he looks like.
I can think of what a caricature of him looks like, but I'm not sure about the actual person.
France was born in 1843 AD, which is obviously before the show started.
1843 AD?
143 AD,
yes.
Before the show started.
That was when it was called the Kingdom of France.
Kingdom of France.
Because it had a monarchy.
In 1792, it was it changed its name when it was married to the French Republic.
How big is France? Well, it is 640,679 kilometres squared, which makes it the 43rd largest country in the world.
But I just want to make it clear that it's not actually a square shape.
It's a hexagonal shape, which is why it sometimes gets called l'hexagon by French people.
Yeah, and it's got quite a lot. It's got 3 sixes in this number, so it's obviously the kingdom of the devil because it's got 66,616. Oh, I don't know,
66,616,416 people living there this year.
Because they're dying and being born completely equally. Because as we know, France is a country of equality.
Yeah. Has France got more people living in it than us? Or it's just about. I think that's. I always remember saying that it's got the same number of people as the UK, but the UK is much smaller area, so we've got a higher population density. They are the 19th most populous country in the world, apparently. But anyway, that's got nothing to do with Coronation Street.
Yes, it does. This is all
bit of background information for you. Let's talk about Coronation Street and their forays to France. Well, in 1962 was the earliest reference to France that I could find, and it wasn't anything to do with France, but more an X-rated French film that Ina, Minnie and Martha went to see at the pictures for some reason, and they were surprised to see 13-year-old Lucille Hewitt there in the audience, and then Ina proceeded to get Lucille to run errands for her to ensure her silence, so a bit of blackmail from Ina there.
Pornography and blackmail.
Yeah.
It was the 60s.
1967 was, I think, the first time that a character was referenced as going over to France, as far as I could tell, because Annie won a trip there with a weekend away with a French film star.
Obviously, Brigitte Bardot.
After being the 100,000th person to apply to the Cutie Beauty Cosmetics.
That's the millionth, that says.
Oh, what did I say? 100,000. Yes, the millionth person, sorry.
You were taking the mick out of me for not being able to read numbers.
And after her trip to France, she turned Francophile.
Just like us.
Yes.
Cooking French meals, playing French records, and putting the tables outside the roses.
I could totally see Annie Walker doing that because she was so high and mighty and pretentious. Not that I'm saying all French people are like that at all.
Not snooty whatsoever.
But they may have a bit of a reputation. I think Annie Walker could have been French in another life.
I think if she'd had gingham tablecloths, it would have been.
What do you think about the idea of having tables outside the Rovers?
funny.
They've got room for it now, the pavements have been extended.
Well, it doesn't really work in England, does it? Let's be frank.
Well, they like their bars in France, don't they? But they don't have pubs particularly.
No. Kind of like America.
Yeah, I think pubs are a particularly British thing.
I think pub is just a word that doesn't sound right unless you're English.
Well, apparently she was just getting on everyone's wicks, sort of trying to Frenchify the Rovers, and they all managed to persuade her to put things back the proper British way, how it should have been.
None of that froggy nonsense.
Exactly.
In 1972, the Ogdens planned a trip to Paris, but Stan was scared of flying, panicked at the airport. They go to the Rovers next day and try to pretend that they went.
In 1973, the next year, Len snubbed Rita by going on a council trip to France without her. He'd made out that only spouses were allowed, and because they weren't married at the time, he said that she couldn't go. But while he was away, she arranged a date with Ken Barlow.
What?
But she was stood up by him. Well, tragic. Okay. In 1979, Mike Baldwin was offered the chance to get involved in an exchange programme with a factory in Weatherfield's twin town of Charleville, but he wasn't particularly keen about it. I think Charleville isn't actually a real place. I'm not sure, actually. I'm pretty sure it's made up. And it might have been one of the first times, if not the first time, that Charleville was mentioned in the programme, and it did come back into it later. But all the factory girls were rowing about who should go. So Mike held a draw with the winning employees, including Vera and Hilda. And Hilda was had to end up selling some of her clothes and even Christmas food money to raise funds to go, because Mike hadn't said at the time, oh, by the way, you're going to have to pay to go over there. It was just like, you can go to France. Yeah, so the Ogdens had a bit of a pauper's Christmas that year, and they ended up going sort of early on in 1980, but we didn't get to see any of it, of course.
In 1983, the Ogdens went to a French restaurant to celebrate opening a bank account, but couldn't read the menu until they ended up with melon and sea bass.
I think in the end they might have known what melon and sea bass was, but that was like the only things that they could, that they knew what it was or something. I don't know how they would know what sea bass was, no. But anyway, Stan told Hilda that he wouldn't swap her for any of the other diners there. So that was probably a nice little storyline, because obviously the Ogdens are always down on their luck, and going into a nice posh French restaurant must have been
quite the thing.
Yeah, exactly, for them.
As we know from our own trip, Northerners don't often understand French menus.
Yes, we may have missed Coronation Street while we were in France last week, but we did see some
Northern antics.
Northern antics, because it was on our final night there. We went to some cafe, and there was a bit of a Mr. Bean moment where some Lancashire girl ordered a steak tartare but didn't know what it was.
Nope, she said it's not cooked, and then she ate some and said, it's not even
I don't
warm.
like it.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, steak tartare is it's like a burger but not cooked. It
yes,
seems, isn't it? Raw minced.
I think
steak.
Everyone knows what steak tartare is.
Well, everyone knows what steak tartare is, I think, because in the Mr. Bean scene where he orders it because he doesn't know what it was and then proceeds to hide it all around the table.
It's one of the most notorious French dishes, alongside snails and frog's legs.
Well, it was a mum that was there with the two children. It was this teenage daughter that ordered it, and the mum obviously didn't know what it was either, so that was quite funny for us to see.
Then she swapped it for some ravioli or something, didn't she?
Yeah, she
Proper
got some
English
cannelloni
food.
in the end. But that would have been quite funny, maybe, to have had the Ogdens order something they didn't know what it was, but Hilda probably would have been like, look, Stan, we got to eat it, whatever.
Yeah.
Because she never liked to lose face. We knew this food
would be a bit funny, just eat it.
Yeah, she never liked to lose face, so.
No, well.
1987 next. During a grape-picking trip to France with a potential romantic interest, Martin Platt, Jenny Bradley, who was Rita's foster daughter, ran off with a bunch of students and declared her love for a man she met called Patrice. And before long, they were engaged against Alan's wishes, and you've got to be careful not to get on the wrong side of Alan Bradley, otherwise they'll be chasing you off to Blackpool.
Oh dear.
But while Patrice was back in France, Jenny ended up snogging some other guy at a Christmas party, and when Patrice found out, he broke off the engagement.
Oh,
so sad. And he was a proper Frenchman that I think they had in the role of that character there, so that
what
may
big,
well
bustly, hairy chest.
I can't remember, but that
swarthy looks.
Could well have been the first
chain smoking.
Could well have been the first like proper French cast member on Coronation Street. Maybe I may be wrong.
I should bring one in now. In 1990, during a trip to France to see a football match with girlfriend Tina Fowler, builder Eddie Ramsden is arrested for hooliganism and returns a week late.
I don't know who those people are.
Because we all know that when abroad, English people like to run amok,
We're all
turn
hooligans,
over picnic tables,
especially when we're going to see football.
Throw bottles of beer at people, which is what we were doing.
Yeah.
Marseille this week.
Also that year, Jenny and a fellow student, Flick Khan, planned a holiday to
France.
France.
Awesome name.
I think it must be short for something.
Flick Khan?
Yeah.
It sounds like a villain out of Star Trek.
Well, Flick decided to stay in France permanently.
With a name like that. Oh, Flick, how are you?
1991, Deirdre sold fitted kittens.
Oh, buy one!
Fitted kitchens over the phone to fund 14-year-old Tracy's trip to France. And I think they mentioned that recently.
Well, why on earth didn't she give her any tips when Tracy was trying to sell bathrooms over the phone?
Oh, yeah, she could have done, actually.
Yes.
1993, now this is proper classic Coronation Street scene here. Raquel was given French lessons by Ken. And everyone remembers it just because of the one line, because Raquel was, I can't remember how many lessons they had, but the first lesson was there, and they're in the, I think they were in the Rovers maybe back room where Raquel was working, and Ken was like, so what do you know already? And she was like, oh, I know Van Rouge and something or other, and she was and bonjour, and Ken was like, anything else? And she says, oh yeah, when I was in France once, somebody told me how to say isn't that a lovely day, or something like that. And Ken says, okay, why don't you try putting it all into a sentence? And she uttered the immortal lines, bonjour Ken, je m'appelle Raquel, voulez-vous coucher avec moi ce soir? And we all know what that actually means. So that was very, very funny, and classic Raquel moment, utterly ditzy, and would never have known that it was just a man trying to make fun of her.
Didn't Ken say when he came back from Canada this week that he was speaking French or doing French, something to do with French?
Did he? I don't remember him saying that.
I thought he did.
I don't know.
In 1994, Percy, Maud and Maureen head to Normandy for the D-Day memorial, and Maud comforts Percy, who's upset at the memories of all the friends that he lost.
Yeah.
When visiting the American graves, Maud reveals to Maureen that Leonard Kennedy was her real father, which was a secret that she'd been hiding for 50 years.
That's an episode that I'd really like to be able to see them going there, because it sounds like it was probably done very well and very respectfully, going to see all the Normandy graves.
It would be a very easy half-hour slot for ITV to just shove this episode in as part of the sort of First World War commemorations.
Yeah. But I guess it's so many characters there that nobody would have known. Nobody nowadays would even know who they are necessarily.
Just fill up half an hour. They love doing stuff like that, don't they?
Yeah, I think they treated it pretty sensitively, and this revelation that Maureen's father was actually an American soldier, that didn't go down too well with Percy.
Oh dear.
Also that year, Alf and Audrey went to France with the Weatherfield Butchers for a black pudding contest, because they like their black pudding in France.
Their Noir
very
seriously. They have the Knights of the Black Pudding, don't they?
They do. And this storyline was particularly important because it saw the introduction of Fred Elliott, one of the Weatherfield Butchers, who spent all the limo journey on the way to France discussing offal with Alf, while Audrey had to listen in disgust. And whilst they were in France, Fred attempted to bribe the jury, resulting in a diplomatic incident that led Alf to untwin Weatherfield with Charleville.
Oh dear.
I don't remember that happening, but that was the year that I started watching Coronation Street, so I may well have watched it back then. 1999, Steve and Vikram headed to France to buy cheap booze to sell at a higher price than Weatherfield.
Oh dear.
Naughty, to clear Steve's tax bill. And they were stopped by customs and lost their van and the £1,000 that Vikram had taken from the corner shop.
Well, that's because they didn't put their booze in socks.
Yeah, that's what you got to do, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
That was all linked to, they had a Coronation Street like late at night kind of programme for a week, because they had Bet and Reg Holdsworth back in it, and they had like a series of episodes over a week or two, and it was all set down in Brighton, and part of the episodes were Steve heading over to Calais with Vikram, so that was a bit of an event there in 1999.
In 2000, we have probably one of your favourite
Yes.
episodes. At the turn of the millennium, Raquel returned to Weatherfield to visit Curly and reveal that he has a daughter, and they are both now in France living with Raquel's new partner.
Yeah, so a few years before, Raquel had left Curly to get a job in Kuala Lumpur, but then unexpectedly returned back at the millennium. Apparently living in France. And then she went off away into the night, and that was that until later on that year, after the Frescoes siege, Curly, Emma, Fred, Audrey, Ashley and Maxine all went to France with proper on-location filming. And I think after the D-Day episodes, this was the main, sort of the only other time that they've proper filmed in France, as much as I remember. And there are some special episodes. They redid the title sequence with like shots of the Eiffel Tower and everything. So it's quite a big event. Curly and Emma went to Raquel's chateau, which I think was in the Loire Valley somewhere, but Raquel wasn't there, sadly.
Raquel.
I was really sad that Raquel wasn't there because I wanted to see her again.
Bothered to get the actress back.
But Curly was just completely obsessed by the memories of Raquel, and Emma was feeling a little bit neglected. Because Curly was also like fawning over his daughter Alice that was there, and I think it was the first time that he'd met her because. Yeah, like you said, Raquel revealed about this hidden daughter at the millennium. Ashley had a panic attack atop the Eiffel Tower, and Fred proposed to Audrey, and she accepted, but later changed her mind.
Aww.
So sad. Maxine, while she was there, posed for a portrait artist, and Ashley was shocked to find out that she had posed nude, but he happily bought the picture when it turns out to be an abstract, kind of ugly looking thing, and which Maxine was not very happy with. Curly told Emma during a trip on the Seine that he never actually really loved Raquel and proposed to Emma, and she accepted.
Wow, it really is the country of love.
I don't like the idea that Curly never really loved Raquel, and I know he was kind of obsessed with her.
He just told Emma that.
He at the time, and he was like besotted with her and couldn't believe that this beautiful woman would be interested in him. But I guess Raquel never probably really loved Curly after all, anyway.
In 2006. Rosie went on a 6-week school exchange to France and left Craig behind. And when she comes back, she keeps going on about how amazing it is, just like we've been, and annoys everyone, just like we are.
In 2007, Janice Battersby, whatever she was at the time, and her boyfriend Roger,
good old Roger,
spent a few months living in France when he was offered a building and plumbing job there.
Because they don't have any of their own builders or plumbers in France.
Obviously not as good as proper British Weatherfield plumbers.
Exactly. In 2008, Audrey and Bill went on a booze cruise with Janice and Roger, and Audrey had a terrible time and lost control of the car during an argument with Bill on the way back and caused an accident, and then she ends up cutting it off with Bill after this. Yeah,
I think Bill ended up just going off with Janice and Roger, and they were having a bit of a drunken time together, and Audrey was a bit too above that. In 2010, Claire Peacock's mum convinced her to emigrate to France, although Ashley wasn't particularly keen. He even went so far as to fake a heart attack to avoid the move there.
But he needn't have bothered because he died in 2010
he died for real later that year.
And so Claire, who was on the run, stowed away to France some months later after she attacked Tracy Barlow.
Yeah, that was a weird final episode for her, wasn't it, in early 2011. Yeah, she'd attacked Tracy. I can't even remember why. I think Tracy had probably made some comment about Ashley. And then, she was stowed away, hidden away from the police, and now she is happily living in France somewhere.
Because as we know, they've got no extradition treaty with England.
No border controls here or anything. No.
In 2014, Carla went off for a business trip in France, the home of knickers, and Peter continued his affair with Tina. And that was the end of France.
Yeah.
They left the show. Since then, been doing kind of all right in the theatre circuit, but we don't think they'll get a better gig than being on Corrie, really, do we?
No. Do you think that? Would you like to see more France in Coronation Street or other countries?
I think France was a good character when it was in it, but I think the time had come. I don't know. I think I don't know. Maybe it's because I live so near to all the places you can go to France, like the Channel Tunnel and the ferries and everything. But it just seems like quite weird that they don't go on holiday there more often.
Although, I mean, the fact they have filmed in France more than they've filmed in Ireland, as far as I know, and we're closer to Ireland, aren't we?
I know.
They talk a lot about the characters going over there.
Actually, they're closer to Ireland than they are to France.
Yeah.
Like we're actually closer to France than we are to London here.
Yeah,
So
definitely closer than we are to Weatherfield.
yeah, so it's probably makes more sense for them to go on holiday to Ireland more often.
Yeah, I guess it's pretty expensive doing all that location filming there, but it's nice to have a little treat.
You don't have to. You just like I said, you just need gingham tablecloths and people being slightly more rude and not queuing properly.
Don't be rude about French people.
I'm not being rude about French people. I'm just saying that they like gingham.
Yeah.
Who doesn't?
So that's it. That is our character profile of France. Hope you enjoyed that little.
We should definitely do Ireland next time.
I haven't done
Well,
anything
you're the
in
one that
Ireland.
said that they went to Ireland more often.
I said no. They don't go to Ireland. They talk about Michelle going off to Ireland, so don't they? Sometime, but they've never. I don't know how much Irish there's been in.
Well, you can find out, can't you?
Maybe
When you run out of characters.
yeah.